My name is Jack Mandeville, and this is Jacked History. Not because I'm a bastion of fitness, but because I'm a little jacked up. Today's topic is going to be about one of my favorite things on the planet. No, not war or revolution, not sports, not politics. It's about whiskey.
That's Grandpa's coffee, aka whiskey.
He's got a bad hairline, but very good fat. He's a tad bit chubby, and his name is Jack. Jacked History, a show where you learn. Jacked History, a show that makes you smile. Jacked History.
But before we start, I want you to take a look at this photo that was taken at the turn of the 20th century. That's legendary whiskey distiller Jack Daniel, with a black fella sitting right next to him. That wouldn't be a significant thing today, but in late 19th century Tennessee, it would be almost unheard of to sit a black man next to a successful white businessman. What it tells us is that particular black man was someone of importance.
I'm kind of a big deal.
We'll get into that later. Jack Daniel's whiskey is one of the most iconic and recognizable brands in the world today. Known for its smooth taste and distinctive square bottles with black labels, JD has become synonymous with American whiskey. And for me personally, it harbors a lot of memories of epic puking rallies I did in my younger days. However, the story of Jack Daniel's is not just about the whiskey itself, but also about the people who contributed to its creation.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
Including a key figure whose story has only recently come into focus. The tale of Jack Daniel's begins in the early 19th century in Lynchburg, Tennessee. It was there that a young boy named Jasper Newton Daniel, better known as Jack, was born sometime around 1849, though nobody is 100% sure of his exact birth year. It would be safe to assume, based on pictures of him, that he had grown up in an aristocratic family that gave him everything he needed to succeed in life. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. His mother passed away shortly after his birth, and Jack's dad did what you did in that time and got remarried right away. Jack, the youngest of 10, never really got along with his stepmother.
You don't even care about our stepmom, do you, you stupid bitch?
And when Jack's father died in the Civil War in the early 1860s, the young lad was sent off to live with a local grocer named Dan Call, who ran a small distillery in Lynchburg. Call's distillery was known for producing a type of whiskey that was popular in the region. Jack spent a significant part of his youth doing menial bitch work on Cal's farm, which is where he first came into contact with a 40-something-year-old slave named Nearest Green. According to the Jack Daniel's Company, the iconic whiskey brand was formally established in 1866, when Jack would have been around 17 years old, making it the oldest registered distillery in the United States. Though some historians point out there's no proof of the company's existence until 1875. At the time, the whiskey was produced using a simple recipe that Jack had learned from his mentor, Dan Call, who had most likely learned it from Nearest Green. However, it was Jack's innovation in the mass distilling process and his business acumen that would set his whiskey apart. It was Jack who refined the charcoal mellowing method, known as the Lincoln County process, which became a hallmark of his brand. This process involves filtering the whiskey through sugar maple charcoal before it's aged, which gives the whiskey its signature smoothness. But while Jack Daniel's success can be attributed to his innovation and entrepreneurial spirit, you have to take into account Green's contributions. Born into slavery in Maryland sometime around 1820, Green was brought to Tennessee as a child. After the Civil War, Nearest was freed, and it was during this time that he became instrumental in developing Jack's brand. Years prior, in the 1850s, Green was hired, Green was purchased by Dan Call,
Sold for a buck.
Jack Daniel's early mentor, to help run the distillery. Green was a skilled distiller in his own right and was responsible for many of the techniques that would eventually define Jack Daniel's whiskey and set it apart from the harsher tasting whiskeys of the day. He taught Jack the intricacies of whiskey making, including the charcoal mellowing process. This charcoal method of working with foods can be traced back all the way to West Africa, so it's safe to deduce that generations of slaves were implementing this practice that was brought over from the old world. Hey, you know, Grill Your Ass Off made a cookbook which you can pick up on their website. Use code JACKHISTORY to get 20% off of the cookbook or anything else. I actually did the afterword for the book. I'm going to read the excerpt to buy time and justify this ad read so I can invoice Grill Your Ass Off so I can get money and you can get your discount, yada, yada, yada. One of America's greatest culinary traditions is our general lack of original culinary traditions. We're undoubtedly a food-driven culture, and it should go without saying, we have almost every dish in the world available within our borders. But our food expertise isn't as much as what we can claim as our own as it is what we can do to make this better. Over the years, we've made so many adjustments to traditional ethnic meals, e.g. pizza, that these dishes morph into something we claim more as our own than the original nations. To put it simply, we make bastard food. The historical reputation of American ingenuity that's synonymous with business and technology is just as applicable to our approach to food. If it's been in your culture for hundreds of years, we promise you we can make it cheaper, faster, sweeter, and somehow claim it as our own distinct style. That's the heart of American cuisine. Not a preparation process born from tradition, but the inherent need to experiment and see how far we can take the dish. That's what the world sees when they see American cuisine. And we're also really fucking fat. They see that part too. Jack Mandeville. However, for many years, Green's contributions were not acknowledged outside of Lynchburg, and his legacy remained largely unknown. But for the people of Lynchburg, many of whom have worked for the brand for generations, Green's legacy was well known locally. It wasn't until over 150 years later that Nearest Green's story began to receive the recognition it deserved. In 2016, a historian and journalist named Fawn Weaver began researching the history of Jack Daniel's and uncovered Green's significant role in the distillery's success. Weaver, along with a team of researchers, helped bring Green's legacy to light, and in 2017, the Jack Daniel Distillery officially acknowledged his contributions by naming a special whiskey after him, Uncle Nearest. Simply put, without Nearest Green, the first master distiller of the brand, there is no Jack Daniel's whiskey brand, as we know it today. And as for that picture, like I said, many families in Lynchburg have been working for the operation since its beginning. And though there are no known photos of Nearest Green, they didn't really take pictures of slaves back then, he did have 3 sons. The man pictured is Nearest's oldest son, George, who Jack grew up with and immediately hired after slavery ended in 1865.
People know me.
Since then, 7 generations of Nearest Green's grandchildren have worked for the organization, with 3 descendants still working there as of 2017, upon Fawn Weaver's report. Daniel died in 1911 at the age of 62. He never married or had any children, so the company was passed to his nephews, who continued to absolutely knock branding and distilling whiskey out of the park. I get that. I've never been married or had any children myself. And of course, the easy speculation was that he was 40 and never married or had kids. But if that was the only criteria for being gay, then, well, shit. I'm gay?
Peter, let me suck your dick.
Maybe one day my nephews can inherit my bitchin' collection of 1970s McDonald's glassware that their mother, my sister, got me from an antique store for my birthday a few years back. I have no legacy. Jack Daniel's continued to grow in popularity. The company expanded its distribution across the United States and eventually began to export its whiskey to international markets. By the 1950s, Jack Daniel's had become a global brand, with whiskey lovers from all over the world flocking to Lynchburg to visit the distillery. The brand's popularity continued to soar throughout the 20th century, and by the 21st century, Jack Daniel's was the best-selling whiskey in the United States and one of the top-selling spirits globally. The distillery remains in Lynchburg, where it produces millions of bottles of whiskey each year, many of which are produced by the same families who worked there from the beginning. All right, Jack Daniel's, I'm sending you my invoice for this video as soon as it publishes. Please like, subscribe, and share, or Peter's gonna die of alcohol poisoning.
Down a rough and dusty road in Lynchburg, Tennessee, worked a bright-eyed boy that some folks call JD. Now that boy had a friend quite a few years in age. His friend made a mean whiskey but wasn't allowed to escape. Drink up, my friends, drink up. Fill that old Jack Daniels in your cup. The best damn Jack Daniel had a vision. Uncle Nearest had great hands. When you put those boys together, they made the best whiskey in the land. Drink up,